Hey, welcome back, everybody, to episode number 8 of Real Talk with Emma G and Ra. Mental health sounds like this. Ra, I know I'm super pumped for today's episode. I know you are too, because our guest today is fantastic. But can I tell you something really exciting before we get started?
Okay, go. Tell me.
Like, super exciting. I'm super excited about this. Yo, my author copy of my new book came today.
You got it. Oh my
I'm
gosh,
so
it looks
excited.
beautiful.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about this. This is what you and I are such advocates for. It's about having real, raw, dirty, nitty-gritty conversations about the entrepreneurial journey, about artistic journeys, about creativity, about leadership, about manifesting, about just everything that we go through as humans and how we navigate mental health and that. So that's my spiel to start off today. How are you, Ra? Talk to me.
I am excited for this conversation. I'm not going to lie. When I was reading through Robert's bio, I was like, okay, this is my people. I think we have very similar ways of seeing the world. So yeah, I'm excited to learn more as well. I think that's a thing for me. Learning from other people always helps me, which also helps everyone else, which helps me to create a bigger impact with my work. So yeah, I'm pumped and I'm so excited about your book. I'm like, I can't wait to get a copy myself. So yay.
I'm excited. Yay, thank you. Yeah, so today's guest, I've actually known him for years. I used to, I wrote the theme song for a company way back when, who was the author incubator that introduced me to Robert in the first place. He is a leadership coach. He helps high capacity leaders who feel stretched thin create sustainable success by mastering their time, mindset, and communication. And of course, I had to try him out myself, and he did wonders for my mindset during the pandemic. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the one, the only, Robert Heath Sr. How's it going, sir?
Welcome. No, my Heidi Mai.
Say one more time.
It's like a Maori greeting to say welcome. Yeah, no, my.
Well, thank you. No, that is awesome. First of all, just thank y'all for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation. Emma, you know that anything you do, I love and support and want to just see be amazing. And so I was super ecstatic about being able to hang out and just kind of talk about the things that we love in this platform. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Game recognized game, sir. Game recognized game. So, I mean, I know that obviously you and I have worked together in close capacity for a long time. You with your work with the author incubator when you were first writing your first book. And then, obviously when 2020 erupted, you launched Thriving in Chaos, which I was honored to be a part of, the first cohort. And now you're here doing the legacy leadership coaching, which I know is very aligned with what Rawinia does. Can you kind of give people an overview on, what that's looked like for you as your career has sort of was it expanded or sort of you've dived deeper into your why, I feel?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like to give a little context to the story that I'm about to tell, I'll say this. Some people might like to say that I have career ADD. I would like to say that I am a career renaissance man. That's the way that I put it forward. But to give you the story, I have been a teacher. I have been a Marine Corps officer. I've been a lawyer, and I've been a business owner. And now I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I own a number of different businesses and nonprofits. But the journey has always been about helping people, and specifically helping people to see that they can be more, that they can do more, that they can have more. And so, if we go back to when it first started, I'm originally from the South Side of Chicago. And what I like to, when I'm talking about me growing up, I grew up hood adjacent, right? So I was not, the rags to riches stories or any of the rest of that, right? Like I was friends with those kids. I knew those kids and my family members, right? My parents are from those areas, but they always made sure we went to schools where we saw that there was a different world and a different life. And so I grew up seeing people living two different lives and having two different realities, even though we were living in the same, areas. And so I went on this journey to try to help grow that. And so that's how I became a teacher, because I wanted, education was the way to get out and to get to places. That was what I had been taught. And I was on my way to being a superintendent, and Providence would have it that I saw someone who was doing what I wanted to do when I was in my third, fourth year teaching. I'm a school improvement team coordinator. I'm doing the work. Like if you've ever been in schools and you see those posters where it's like, an acronym for pride or whatever, I was that person that was putting up the posters and making up the acronym and doing all that stuff and doing the in-services with the teachers. Like, we're going to change the way we teach. We're going to change the way we talk. We're going to change the way we interact with the kids. I was that person, right? And I believed in what we were doing. And the superintendent who had came in had been a Memphis City Schools student who had went away, then came back. Now she was coming back to change her school system. And I was like, this is me. This is awesome. I'll get a front row seat to my future. And in 18 months, she wasn't there anymore. And I was like, oh, and the reason she wasn't there wasn't because of nefarious things, wasn't because of, scandal or anything like that. It was, she was qualified. She was capable of doing the job on paper. But one of the things that she struggled with was leading people to make that vision manifest into reality. And I didn't know that, and I didn't see it. It wasn't like there was red flags that was everywhere for me. So I was like, there's a blind spot that I have with this, because I thought she was great, right? And I started realizing I need to learn about leadership. So that's what sent me on this kind of leadership sojourn. That's when I went to law school to really understand, how does everything work together? Like, how do we make rules? What is our social contract? What are our rights? What's the difference between morals and ethics and laws, right? Like, how do we figure out how we interact with each other and what we should be doing with to each other, for each other, and everything out. And then the other place that I went to learn about leadership was what I like to consider the greatest leadership training academy in the history of the world, the United States Marine Corps officer programs. And I became a Marine Corps officer, and really learned a lot about leading, right? I learned a lot of lessons. Leaders eat last, right? You lead from the front, right? Like there's certain things that leaders must do. And it has to do with taking care of your people, right? Yes, mission accomplishment is important, but troop welfare is also important. All of these things I learned during my time in the Marine Corps and becoming a Marine Corps company commander. And the one big thing that I learned on that journey, though, was that there are a lot of leaders that were suffering in silence. Right. I grew up thinking that if you were a bad leader, it was because you didn't care about people, or you were lazy and didn't want to do the work, or you just wanted all the credit. And so you were like egomaniacal and power hungry. And those were the bad leaders. Everybody else, as long as you tried hard, you like people and everything, you could be a decent leader. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. And what I got to see was that a lot of the people that were actually bad leaders, that were having bad outcomes and hurting people, were unintentionally doing so. They were having these outcomes, but they were people who worked really hard, really long hours. They were people who cared about people. They were people who were selfless and had taken on leadership, not out of a desire for power or gain or glory, but because it needed to be done, but they didn't have the skills to do it. And that is really kind of what got me to where we are now, which is I help leaders get the best out of themselves and those that they lead. And one of the biggest things that I try to help leaders do is to make peace with the fact that it's okay if you're not a good leader right now, like you weren't supposed to be. Right. Like there's the talk that I do called Leadership is Broken. And it's really about the pathway to leadership is broken, because the way we become leaders is generally we become really good professionals. And because we're so good as professionals, people look at us and they're like, well, hey, you're really good. How about you be in charge of these 4 people that are mediocre? And can you make them really good? Right. And the problem is that the skill set that you had to master to be a good professional is a completely different skill set than the one that you need to help other people be good professionals. And so therein you have the rub. And that's really what we spend our time doing, helping leaders to understand that, and then to get better at the skills that you need to actually, what we call, facilitate the manifestation of greatness in others.
Oh my gosh, there's so much in that. And I was like nodding my head along, being like, yes, yes, yes. Because I can relate so much in my own personal journey in becoming a leadership coach. But what I really loved in what you shared is this is what I've also seen, like, as you mentioned, like a lot of professionals end up getting promoted into a leadership position, but they don't have the skill set, right? Like it's across the board in almost every single industry. What, in your opinion, are the leadership skills that are needed for effective leadership, but also with regard to taking care of yourself? Because I love that part. Like almost every leader, I want to say almost every, because there are a lot who have learned how to take care of themselves now, because there is more conversation that's happening around it. However, I would still say a vast majority don't actually know how to be able to kind of manage both, right? Taking care of yourself as well as still being effective in your leadership. So yeah, in your opinion, based on your experience, wisdom, like I'd love to hear like what you do and what that looks like.
No, I love the question, and I feel like there's kind of two parts there, and so I want to break it up so that I make sure that I give a good answer to both parts. So I'll talk about kind of some of the skills that are necessary to be a leader, but I want to talk about a paradigm first that I thought that you articulated, Ra, that was really important, which is that people feel a lot like they can either take care of themselves or they can take care of their people, and that, I like to call that the tyranny of the or, right? Like that bondage that we have in our minds that we can't do both, that we've got to pick one or the other. It really sets a lot of people up for failure, because there's this belief that I either have to be a martyr for the rest of my career as a leader and just constantly sacrifice myself, or I have to be a tyrant, right? Now I'm in charge, but I'm taking care of me, and everybody else is second, and right. And nobody wants to be either of those, right? Like the best thing that we get to is a lot of people turn into resentful martyrs, right? And so they're martyring themselves, but they're hating the people that they're martyring themselves for all the time, right? Going around like, if somebody asked me to do one more thing, that's right. Like that feeling is what happens when you've been in leadership for so long, right? And the first thing that we do is try to help people to change that paradigm and to realize, right? So there's a visual that I like to give, right? When you think about a coffee pot, right? And I'm not a coffee drinker, but for the coffee drinkers in the world, you all will have experienced this before, right? In the Marine Corps, everybody drinks coffee. So I learned how to make it. I learned how to pour it, right? To make sure everybody's good, because I'm not drinking coffee, but that don't mean that I'm not the lowest man.
I love coffee.
And so I'm making it. Exactly. So you get this, right?
Well, you haven't had American coffee, just saying.
Generally, you pour coffee, right? And as the coffee pot gets emptier and emptier and emptier, it gets empty. And then what do you have to do?
Refill it.
You got to refill it. But now here's the thing. And most coffee drinkers hate that person that drinks the last of the coffee and doesn't
refill it,
right? Because while you're refilling it, nobody else can get any more coffee. You have to be without, right? As long as the refilling is happening. And that's how most people lead, right? We pour out of ourselves, and we pour out and we pour out and we pour out and we pour out, we pour out and we pour out, and then we get empty, and then we got to go get recharged. We got to go to a retreat, or we got to go somewhere to get filled back up. And while we're filling ourselves back up, nobody else is getting helped. We're taking care of us. And so we never feel really comfortable with it, because we know that we're not pouring out anymore. We're just filling up. And that doesn't feel as satisfying as pouring. And so we're constantly in this dichotomy of, do I take care of me? Do I take care of them? And I call that the burnout model of leadership, right? I highly recommend that we think about something different, because here's the interesting thing. If you have gotten leadership from a burnout model, guess what you have learned? If you don't have the coffee pot, but you've got a coffee cup and somebody needs some extra coffee, what do? If you want to be a good leader, if you want to be a good person, you pour a little bit of the coffee out of your cup into their cup so that they can have some. And now you have less and they have some, but now you're in that same scarcity model. And it teaches that same scarcity model. Everybody that learns in that way, where someone is pouring into them in that way, they learn that model. And so again, it's not our fault that we lead this way. We've learned it. We've absorbed it. We've seen it. We've been conditioned to lead that way. But I want you to take a different idea. And for those of y'all that have been at weddings and have seen this before, right? You see the champagne tower with the glasses, and you got one glass at the top, and you got 3 or 4 glasses, and you got 4 or 5 glasses and everything, right? Now, here's the interesting thing I want you to think about, right? And what we like to call this is the abundance model. That first glass of champagne, it gets full, and then what does it do?
It pours out into the others.
It's the overflow.
It pours out into the others from its abundance.
Yeah.
And it's able to fill up the other glasses below it without ever having to be empty itself. Now, this is the model that we want to learn how to do. How do you make sure that you're always pouring from your abundance?
Right.
Right. And it's beneficial for you. But here's the really kicker. Also, when you look at the next level of glasses, how do they pour into the glasses that are under them?
Abundance.
Exactly. And so it not only does the work of pouring into others from your abundance, but it demonstrates the work of pouring into others from your abundance. And so it changes the narrative. So we get away from the scarcity model and into the abundance model. So the first part of that question, right, before we get to the skills that are necessary, there's a mindset that is necessary, which is you are best serving the world when you're pouring from abundance rather than when you're pouring from scarcity, right? It's the old adage on the plane, right? Put your mask on first,
Right.
and then serve other people. And understand that by putting your mask on, you're actually serving other people better, because a half oxygenated you is not somebody that I want trying to save my life. I'm just saying.
Absolutely not. I
Right?
love the visuals that you use. They're so clear. Like it's a very clear visual of like what has been conditioned and
Mhm.
society leadership for so long versus actually what it is that we need to be modeling. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Chef's
Thank you.
kiss.
No.
And I try to use those specifically because I feel like we can intellectualize this stuff. And yes, like we go to school, we get our degrees, we read our books, we write our books, we do all the things. And right, we can talk about it in theory, but I really like to give people an opportunity to see what it looks like in practice. Like, how do you do this? How does this actually impact the world? And so, right, to the second question that you talked about, the skills, I think one of the first things that you have to do and you have to have as a skill if you want to be a leader is you have to be able to see the greatness in others. You have to be able to see the potential. You have to have the ability to visualize and to envision a different future, right? You got to see beyond the obstacle, beyond the problem, beyond the issue, to see a more positive future. That's the first skill that I think leaders need to have. And then the second skill is that you have to have the ability to create space for that transformation to happen.
Mm.
And that's the thing that a lot of leaders struggle with, because most of us are problem solvers. We are get things done type of people. And leading is not about you doing so much as it is about you facilitating, right? That's why we say leadership is facilitating the manifestation of greatness in others, right? From the Latin root facile, right? Facile is to make easier, to right? Facile is easy. Facilitate is to make easier the manifestation of greatness in others, right? We allow that to happen when we work with others. So anyway, I don't want to preach, but
No, you can preach. I love it. It's fun because, like, as you're saying this, 5 years after the fact, when I took your Thriving in Chaos course, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of times during our sessions, our group sessions, I brought up the whole idea of the masculine versus feminine version of leadership, right? And I think that goes back to what you're talking about when it comes to that recognizing the differences in leadership by pushing or by supporting.
Exactly.
And I think that that's kind of a mentality that we have struggled with a lot in Western society, specifically when it comes to, we're in love with the grind, we're in love with the hustle culture, we're in love with the, get up at 5 a.m. and work until you are crying and never see your family.
75 hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's one of the things I think is it makes you very different. And I think that a lot of people can learn from, because you seem to have struck this balance between honoring all facets of self as you guide people to their best versions of themselves, which obviously is imperative for mental health, for output, for performance, for, I see it all the time in my vocal students. You come to class or come to our sessions together and people are stressed and like, you can't sing like this. Your body's an instrument.
Right.
You like, there's no way, even if you're writing a song, you can't do that when your brain's in overwhelm. Let's get it out so that you can honor all facets of self. Can you speak to like how you came to that that conclusion in your work? Because I think so many people, specifically, and I don't mean no harm by this, but specifically those who've been through military, really struggle with that balance between that masculine, feminine energy, what we refer to as masculine, feminine energy, and that balance of just self.
No, I love the question. And I think that especially, right, because even the military went through a transition from kind of command and control style leadership to decentralized leadership. And what I was blessed to have learned in the Marine Corps was a more decentralized style of leadership, a more empowering style of leadership. And again, one of the reasons why I call the Marine Corps one of the if not the greatest leadership training academy in the world, is because the Marine Corps was one of the initial proponents of a decentralized style of command, right? Of a leadership that was more empowering and pushing leadership decisions further down the line. And so it's embedded in Marine Corps culture, right? And one of the big things though is that this stuff is not new. And one of the things that I feel like oftentimes happens when we look at kind of leadership is we get stuck in eras, right? Not realizing that there was an era before the era that went wrong, right? Like, so when we look back, one of my favorite leadership quotes is from the Tao Te Ching. So, right, nearly 3,000-year-old Chinese wisdom literature, and it's in this passage, Lao Tzu says, "The greatest leaders, the people barely know they exist. When their task is accomplished, when their job is done, the people say, 'We did it ourselves.'" And that, right, I like to look at it when you talk about the question of like kind of masculine and feminine. One of the things that again, we get into that idea of the tyranny of the or, as if one is better than the other. And I like to look at it from the perspective of, right, even a lot of people talk about this like in work-life balance, right? The myth that I believe doesn't exist. There's no such thing as work-life balance, because we act as if work is different from what's at home and home is different from what's at work, but we're not different people. Right. We're the same person in that space. So work-life balance doesn't exist. What I like to talk about, and I think from a musical perspective, this is going to not be lost on you, right, is work-life harmony, right? Because harmony is a concept that is so powerful because it's the integration of all of the disparate things into a whole, right? And one of the cool things about harmony that I love, right, is that when you play a note, right, when you play two notes, right, depending on what they are, you may hear different things. But when you play a chord or you play a harmonic group, one of the things that happens is that there's a resonance that's created because of the harmony, aka the interaction of the notes with one another, that creates a different resonance that didn't exist before the harmony existed, right? Harmony is, and that integration is synergistic. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and it gives a completely different experience for the music when you're in harmony versus when you're just in, right, melody or in staccato or whatever the case may be, right? When you're playing chords, it changes the experience. It's a more robust, more profound experience. And so when we're looking at ourselves and trying to figure out, should I be in my masculine energy? Should I be in my feminine? Like, I am the harmony of my mother and my father, right? Like, I am the harmony of my masculine and my feminine. It's not that I am picking one or the other. It is, how do I integrate them in such a way that they are serving my highest and best self, my highest and best use, that they are in alignment with my purpose. So I guess my thing when I look at that is, we want to figure out how to harmonize. And that starts with, as you remember from Thriving in Chaos, it starts with defining success. Until you know where you're going, you can't, like, arguing about how doesn't matter, right? Like, I always have this fun thing when I get a group of leaders together and I'm like, let's talk about what are the best ways to travel. And, people will be like, well, boats are the best way to travel, or train is the best way to travel, or bike, or walking, or airplanes, right? And we go through all these different ways to travel. And then I say, okay, we're going from Chicago to London. What's the best way to travel? Half of the things that everybody was just talking about fall off the list because they are completely irrelevant to where we're going. You can want to walk as much as you want. Unless you got a James Bond type suit, you're not walking to London. Right? Like, it's just not going to happen. Right? And so there's so many times that we get stuck in the arguments about how before we've decided what and why. And so I think that's the big thing. Like, for me, that's the first step. We've got to figure out what and why, and in that order, right? What is the thing that we're trying to do, and why is it important? Why is it so moving that it's worth a particular how, and which hows is it worth? Right? Because some types of objectives are not worth a whole bunch of extra energy and expenditure and money and all the rest of that. Right? There's meals that you're willing to pay $100 for, and there's meals that you're willing to pay $2 for. Right? And that has nothing to do with the person that's preparing it. It has to do with its utility to your body. Right? And that's the thing that we as leaders have to be able to understand and to be able to articulate for ourselves first. Because remember, we got to fill our own cup first. And once we know what our why is, right? Nietzsche said it this way: people can endure almost any how if they have a why that's big enough.
I've quoted that multiple times to almost everybody who listens. Yep.
I love this so much because I think the why part is the thing that's missing for a lot of people when it comes to leadership. Like when you're talking about the how question, so many people ask me that I want to hear, how do you show up so consistently, like online with your work? And I'm like, well, because I have a really strong why. Like, it's so much bigger than me. Like, for me, my why is to end world suicide, but then also to change the outcomes of my people, the Maori Pacifica people back in New Zealand. Like, and that is a really strong why for me. And so I'm like, it's not about me. I get out of bed every day because I want it so bad for everyone else.
I had no idea that was your why, brah.
Didn't you?
No, because that's so similar to my, because my ex-boyfriend, I don't know if you know this, when I was 19, he committed suicide. And it was literally on the way to his funeral after me struggling with depression my entire life that I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can with music to help another young person never feel like they have to give up like that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
How's that for a line?
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. So first of all, I just thank you for sharing that. And I want to honor that space. That was just so awesome for both of you all. Like, it makes sense that y'all got a show together because y'all on the same path, on the same journey. But that's so powerful. And I love that you have figured out how to articulate it, right? You figured out how to tap into it and how to connect it, right? Because that allows you to live an aligned life. And like you said, it allows you to show up as you wherever you go because you are constantly walking in alignment with that purpose, right? I love that. That's so powerful.
And to me, that's like where I start with my clients, like especially when they're navigating feeling demotivated. I'm like, well, do you have a clear why? Like, what is your reason and your purpose versus the how question that so many people ask, right? What's your why? Can you tell us what your why is?
She went there.
I know. I mean, because to me, I'm like, I love hearing what other people's why is. Like, what's the legacy that you're hoping to leave with your work on the world?
I love it. No, thank you for that question. And you put me on the spot. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I know how to articulate this, but I'm gonna try to do it succinctly. Because I don't know if y'all figured it out yet. I can be a tad bit long-winded. So my why, and I'll give context to it first, which is I believe that everybody is here for a reason. Everybody has a gift, has greatness, has a divine purpose inside of them, right? And because of that belief, my why is rooted in increasing and dramatically increasing the number of people who are living in alignment with their purpose, who are manifesting that greatness in the world. Because I believe that our kind of ticket to ride on this rock orbiting the sun is manifesting that greatness because it does two things. Number one, it fulfills and maximizes our time on this planet. But more importantly, as Marianne Williamson famously said, when we shine our light, we unconsciously give other people the permission to shine theirs. When we are liberated from our fears, our mere presence liberates others. And that's what my why is to increase the number of people that are living in that space, shining their lights and having their fear be a liberating force in the world.
Full body goosebumps.
Yeah, Marianne Williamson's a boss. I'm so glad you quoted her. You were there at her when she announced that she was running for president back in 2020. Yes,
I was not. I was not there for that. I was watching, but I wasn't in person.
I don't know if you knew this, right? I was asked to write and perform a song for her at her presidential announcement back in 2020. And again, it's just like, I love how life kind of sends us all these cues all the time to just remind us to stay in that alignment, right? To stay in that, like, walking your purpose, walking your why. Which takes me to, I think probably the last question because we're running out of time today. But one of the things that I've constantly, as much as you quote Marianne Williamson, that I constantly quote you on, sir, is the whole idea about done being more important than being perfect.
Yes.
Love.
And I think that's, when it comes to staying aligned with your why, I think that, yes, of course, it's important to know what your why is. But I think when it comes to things like imposter syndrome, like who the truck am I to perform for somebody with, of Marianne Williamson's stature, of Dr. Angela Kingdon's stature, etc. Getting over those goosebumps, getting over that imposter syndrome, and recognizing that doing the damn thing is far superior to making sure it's perfect. Can you speak to that at all?
I love this question, and it taps into so many things because I am a recovering perfectionist. Hi y'all, my name's Robert, and I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I think we can all put our hands up.
Right. And one of the things that was so interesting to me, that was kind of a liberating experience with this, when I learned done is better than perfect. I remember I was at a real estate convention, and there was somebody up on stage that was saying it, and I was like, that makes perfect sense. And I didn't know why yet, but it just resonated, right? And then I started looking at it, and I remember looking up the definition of perfect in the dictionary. And here's the fun thing. So perfect, of course, means flawless or as close to flawless as possible. And then I was like, wait a minute. The definition of perfect ain't even perfect. Why am I sitting here stressing myself out trying to be super perfect when perfect ain't even perfect?
Right.
And then I realized that perfect was a myth. It didn't exist. And it freed me up to say, all right, I'm shooting for excellence. How can I be better today than I was yesterday? How can I listen to the great late Dr. Maya Angelou and say, I'm going to give myself grace for the things that I didn't know when I didn't know them. When I know better, I'm going to do better. And ultimately, what I learned was that life is a journey, right? My mother has this saying, and I quoted in my latest book, Courageous Communication, because so often we get bogged down by this feeling and this need that we're supposed to know everything, that we're supposed to have everything together. And my mother used to say this when I was a kid, when she wanted to take me down a peg, and she'd say, "Baby, there's enough you don't know to make a whole new world." And when I was a kid, I would be so upset, so angry. Of course I know, but as I have gotten older, the profundity of that word from my mother has just constantly boggled my mind, right? Because at the end of the day, as long as we're in this journey, there's going to be enough we don't know to make a whole new world. And this journey is about learning more and growing and doing more. And so this journey towards perfection is a fool's errand, right? And when we look at imposter syndrome is all about holding ourselves to an unreasonable standard and not accepting the reality that is here, right? I was talking to another person. I was doing another interview, and we were talking about, Myron Golden said something about the difference between fear and anxiety, and I love the distinction that he made. He was like, fear is a natural expression that we have. It's a natural experience that we have. It's actually a helpful experience that we have, because fear keeps you from doing things that can kill you, right? Fear comes up when a clear and present danger is actually in front of you and your body says, hey, we should probably avoid that, right? That is what fear is.
Right.
Because there's a real danger and your body has a reaction to a real danger. Now, anxiety, on the other hand, anxiety is a state of belief that a negative outcome is going to happen in the future. Not a clear and present danger, a future possibility that we choose to believe is more likely than the equally positive alternative possibility. And hope or excitement and anxiety exist in the same space, and we get to choose whether we want to have anxiety or whether we want to have hope. It's not a reaction so much as it is a choice, although that choice for many of us has become habitual, has become automatic, right? And imposter syndrome follows that same premise, where we believe that somebody's going to realize that we don't belong here. Because we have decided that we don't belong here. But the funniest thing about the reality of any situation where you're having imposter syndrome is somebody has decided already that you belong there.
Yeah.
And they have looked at whatever evidence they needed to look at to say, this person belongs here. And what we're saying is, no, you don't know enough. I don't really belong here. You person who invited me, you person who knows more about this space than I do, because you have the power to actually invite and set up the event. I'm going to say that, no, I know more about it and I don't belong here, even though I know less about it than you do.
I love it. I love it. You're just
And
dropping
with that
so
kind of
many
passion.
bombs. So many
I love it. So if you are watching, if you are watching this right now and you want to know more about Robert Heath, and you want to take your leadership to the next level, there are two free tools that he has designed to help you lead with greater clarity, confidence, and purpose. And I will be putting in the description in this video. You'll have access to that, to all of those resources. And of course, you can don't stalk him, but you can reach out to Robert directly to find out more about legacy leadership coaching, and all the passion and excitement that he can too bring to your world. Guys, I'm sad that we have to end here. This is...
Oh my gosh, I feel like we could talk forever.
Seriously.
I really love the way that you articulate things, the way that you weave so much wisdom, the metaphors that you use. I can really hear your passion and also your groundedness in everything that you hear. It's been such a joy having you on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the space that you all are creating. These conversations are so necessary. And I love that you all are able to create this space and hold the space for people to be able to have them. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Likewise. Like I said, sir, game recognized game. So, until next week, friends, be good, be kind, spread love like it's going out of fashion. If you want to know more about my new book, hit me up. If you want to know more about Ra's books, and of course, Robert's books as well, reach out. This is what it's all about. Mental health sounds like this. Peace, love, and sunshine.
Oh,
I was going to say happiness.
Like yes.
So happiness.